sponsored by the Degama Group.
Hello, welcome to Rumbo Minero. My name is Cesar Campos. In the absence of Jorge Leon Benavides, I will be hosting this program with our esteemed, always well-liked producer, Miguel Zavala. How are you, Miguel? How are you, Cesar? Nice to be with you today. Well, this week has been marked in the mining sector by the appointment of the High Commissioner for the Fight Against Illegal Mining, a former Commander General of the Air Force, none other than Miguel Rodolfo Garcia Esquerre. This in the legal framework of a commission that was formed last year, in the year 2023, which still has nothing to do with what was announced by the Minister of Energy and Mines, Engineer Miguel Rodolfo Garcia Esquerre, Engineer Romulo, much with respect to the creation of an absolutely autonomous authority, ANSAR, as Jaime Daltados said in an interview we made to him, to fight against this scourge.
That is right, Cesar. Well, and this comes as a result then of a new attack suffered by Minera Poderosa, with the result of 1 dead and the demolition of high-tension towers in the most terrorist style of the 80s. This shows
that the fight against illegal mining is not getting the expected results, even though the government is announcing emergency declarations in several locations in our country. Precisely to talk about mining formalization, we are going to have with my guest engineer Henry Luna, who is Vice Minister of Mines, and we are going to deeply deal with this topic. We also have another guest.
Following this line, Cesar, we will also have the presence of Luis Felipe Huertas del Pino, lawyer and partner of Hernández Cía, with whom we are also going to discuss illegal mining, mining formalization, and investments. No doubt.
So in the spotlight on this issue that greatly affects the development of the mining industry in our country, we give peace to Gabriela Chicoma with the main mining news of the week.
Thank you, Jorge. These are the main mining news of the week.
Due to global efforts to reduce carbon emissions, copper plays an important role in the energy transition, being an essential component of electric vehicles, solar panels, and other new renewable energy technologies. Cricop Capital indicates in its latest report on copper that demand for the metal will double by the industry standards and predicts that the industry will not be able to meet the growing demand for the metal, so shortages will drive up its price. But Petro informed that the company that will accompany Petroperu with a 60% share of Lot 10 of Talara, the largest in the Northwest Basin, will be chosen among the consortiums formed by Offshore International Group, Awaitia Energy del Peru and Termoselva, and GIF Investimentos and Plant Oil and Gas. The current operator CNPC, which has a contract until May 19, did not apply.
Thanks to Gabriela Chicoma for the most important mining news of the week. As we had anticipated, we are pleased to receive Engineer Henry Luna, Vice Minister of Mines, with whom we will discuss the issue of formalization, and especially in this area, Miguel, so desperate that the processes continue to be tied up, where this week or the week before or the previous week, a new person has died as a result of the onslaught of illegal mining. Vice Minister, as always, it is a pleasure to have you here in our studios.
Very grateful for the invitation and here to absorb any queries you may have. Starting with
this, I am commenting on, Vice Minister, because it is really painful. This week, a former General Commander of the Air Force, Rodolfo Garcia Esquerre, as High Commissioner for the Fight Against Illegal Mining. But he is within a different, let's say, legal framework, which was created last year by the PCM. And we are looking very carefully at what the Minister of Entreguiminas, Mr. Romulo, has announced, very much with respect to the creation of an autonomous entity that could be able to create an autonomous, that can, what is the sector thinking about? What is it coordinating with other sectors of the executive power, regional governments, etc., to combat this scourge, for the fight against this scourge?
Well, first of all, I would like to express my solidarity with the powerful mining company, with the population of Patas that have been affected by recent attacks, where even some lives have been lost. So I believe that we cannot live in this climate because in the past there was already a formalization process in Peru, right? Since 2002, there have been attempts at formalization, and these have been, let us say, are the product of a long work, right? And one of the models we had was the agreement signed between the artisanal miners in the area of La Libertad, mainly in Patas. Poderosa has been an example of agreements between artisanal miners and a medium-sized mining company. And this has worked normally, but we see that in the last few years, as a result of these famous declarations of commitment that were made in the year 2012, the Humala government and a package of norms, more than 60 norms, have deformed the whole formalization system. And we see that after 12 years since this process began, there are only approximately 2,000 formalized workers. There are only approximately 2,000 formalized workers. Furthermore, these 2,000 formalized miners are linked to approximately 10,000 miners who are currently undergoing a formalization process, right? And we also see that within the packages of regulations that were issued in 2012, there were what you are already mentioning, the High Commissioner. At that time, Urestino was the High Commissioner, but this position had been left aside a long time ago. And recently with the creation, I think it is important on the one hand, because there is a legal vacuum. In what sense? We as the Ministry of Energy and Mines see formal mining. The regional directorates of energy and mines see small scale and artisanal mining, also formal mining, but they are also in charge of the mining formalization process, right? And in the Ministry of Energy and Mines, there is a directorate for mining formalization whose objective is to support this formalization process, right? But where there is a gap is in the issue of illegal mining, right? The issue of illegal mining is a matter for the Public Prosecutor's Office, the Armed Forces, the Ministry of the Interior. And I think it is important that there is a person or an entity that groups together the illegal miners, right? I think it is important that there is a person or an entity that groups them together because there is a lot of illegal mining at the moment. We see it, for example, in Patas. We also see it in the area of Loreto, where dredges circulate freely in areas where mining activities are prohibited. And we also see it in other regions of the country. So
Everything. In contrast to that, a few days ago, you had a meeting with artisanal miners, small miners. Tell us a little bit about what you have talked about, what problems they have shown you, or what conclusions they have reached. And we are also concerned about the reactivation of the social conflicts, which, well, months ago, we have not had for months. We have not had a relative calm, a new blockade to the mining corridor in the south, some protests in Ayacucho against some projects, which could obviously affect production once again. And also the projection of the investments that you have made, given
Well, first of all, we have to differentiate between medium and large-scale projects. We could say the general mining regime, where there is no major inconvenience in the development of mining units. We have seen that last year an appropriate social environment has developed, which has allowed us to break records in production and also to break records in exports, and also break records in mineral exports. In this year, we see that the only project that at this moment has 8 days of stoppage in the transportation of minerals is Las Bambas, where just yesterday the local authorities, the Ministry of the Interior, and all the companies in the area met to lift this stoppage. Companies in the area to lift this measure, which has been partially lifted. But additionally, as the Ministry of Energy and Mines, we are working on a measure that will be definitive measure. And we are doing this in coordination with the Presidency of the Council of Ministers, with the Ministry of Economy and Finance, where a technical table has been created in the year of the Chumbivilcas table. In this table of Chumbivilcas, some projects have been generated that will be in charge of the Ministry of Transport and Communications, the Ministry of Housing and Construction, and the Ministry of Education mainly. There are approximately 26 projects with an investment of 176 million that would be in charge of these ministries, but for which it is required that these ministries have the budgetary authorization that would be granted by the Ministry of Economy and Finances. And we, as the Ministry of Energy and Mines, are heading this technical roundtable, and we are playing the role of facilitator. And we are playing the role of facilitator, the role of being present in the area, of coordinating with the authorities. And in this sense, I believe that we have already met 2 days ago with all the mayors of Chumbivilcas, with their regional governor, with our Minister of Energy and Mines. And we have already signed, let's say, an agreement by which we will meet at the end of the month. And we hope that by that time, the ministries that are going to develop these projects can already announce that they already have the necessary budget, right? They already have the necessary budget, right? This will help us to facilitate the resolution of the whole mining corridor issue, which mainly involves Las Bambas, Antapacay, and Jantay, which are 3 companies that generate 50% of the national copper production. Right, so that is the importance of this mining corridor, right? And I think that the Presidency of the Council of Ministers, and the MEF are helping us to solve these issues, right? Additionally, of course. Additionally, there is already an issue of local agreements that are made between companies and communities, but this is with its own social responsibility fund of each company.
Well, let us address precisely the 75 projects located in 17 regions announced by MINEN, which could be activated as soon as possible. And this obviously requires a review of how the single window for the registration of exploration proposals is working. What is MINEN's assessment in this respect?
Well, that is another point that is very interesting and that we are working on, isn't it? It has been achieved by working as a state, no longer working as separate entities, as separate ministries, but as a state, that we have a single window at the moment, which is led by the Presidency of the Council of Ministers and the Ministry of Energy and Mines, where there are 10 entities with which we are working, and the first stage has already been completed. The first stage was to create a portal where any investor from any part of the world can access this portal and see all the processes that are being carried out in the country, and can see all the processes that are followed for exploration, for exploitation, for beneficiation, and for expansion of exploitation and beneficiation. This portal is already ready. It was announced and shown at the PIDAC recently in March. And now we are working in a legal committee together with all these entities to continue simplifying processes. That is the announcement that our Premier has also made, that we are going to continue simplifying these processes to be able to, let's say, streamline them. But he had been asked for a balance. Deputy
What
Minister,
is the balance at this stage of the operation of the window?
the balance is very positive because we have seen that many of the large-scale projects considered for this year, which are 7 projects, are already underway. All of them have practically all the corresponding authorizations. For example, one of the projects that lacked authorizations were for projects that were not properly The authorizations were not strictly speaking due to issues of the Ministry of Energy and Mines, but they were superficial issues. So what did we do? With our technical team, we went to Asunar. We have gone to the Superintendents of National Assets. We have had the support of the superintendent, and he helped us to unblock these projects, right? The same thing we are doing when we have water problems with ANA. And another very important actor that we have to motivate and encourage to help us to solve this issue is NS. Because INES depends on the Ministry of the Environment, but they are the ones that grant the authorizations, are they not? In order to be able to make the expansions, right? So we are working together with them. And another very important actor is the ANA. Another very important actor is NA, the National Water Authority, with whom we are also working in a coordinated manner. The good thing is that currently, as I mentioned, at the cabinet level itself, we are already working in an integrated manner among all the sectors. This is positive for the country.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, positive.
Yes, and we still need to discuss a series of issues that we have left, but as always, we abuse your kindness. We always abuse of your kindness and cordiality. We will have you soon to continue with other items of the mining sector agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Genero Henry Luna, Vice Minister of Mines, was here with us on Rumbo Minero. Gabriela Chicoma with more information on FOMIN.
Thank you very much. Expo Mina Peru on September 1, 24 will be chaired by Luis Rivera, Executive Vice President of Golfis Las Americas, and integrated by an advisory board of renowned mining leaders who will support us to achieve a magnificent organization. Highlight your brand through the different sponsorships we offer at Expo Mina Peru, networking opportunities, participation in exclusive activities, promotion in the media, among other important benefits. For more information, visit our website www.expominaperu.com.
We enter our international block, American Mining, and as always, we link up from Wall Street, New York with José Gonzales, who is also the international editor of our publication, Rumbo Minero magazine. How are you, José? And welcome, as always, to our program.
Very well, Cesar. Thank you. Always delighted to be with you.
In the last few weeks, José, the price of a barrel of oil has risen. The price of a barrel of oil, a barrel of Brent crude, which has gone up since the beginning of the year. It was trading from $75 a barrel to $90. This, of course, has a whole implication for the sector. Financial in the economic sector. Explain to us, please, what are the consequences of this increase, which also passes the critical range of $85 a barrel. The critical range of $85 a barrel.
That is correct, Cesar. Brent crude futures, which remained above $90 a barrel, fell slightly this week below that benchmark. According to Trading Economics, due to the ongoing ceasefire talks in Gaza, Egyptian and Qatari mediators have, however, faced resistance to end the conflict to the extent that they have ever rejected an Israeli proposal that did not meet their demands. Despite such talks, the risk of an escalation involving other countries, such as Iran, is still present in the energy markets. Geopolitical tensions have been compounded by decisions by Turkey, which imposed restrictions on exports to Israel, and Mexico, which has announced further cuts in crude oil exports to supply its domestic refineries. According to Bloomberg, Mexico's decision takes away from production amid a supply shock that is intensifying fears of a commodity-driven inflationary resurgence. This week's U.S. inflation at 3.5% in the previous month is above the expected 3.4%, up from 3.2% last month. Bloomberg News Agency notes that U.S. sanctions on Russia and those that could be reimposed on Venezuela on April 18th licenses expire and sanctions on Venezuelan oil could be reinstated. In addition to the Houthi rebel attacks in the Red Sea, and the OPEC Plus cuts are restricting supply, which has also been affected by production problems in the United States, Qatar, and Iraq, which have forced the withdrawal of 1 million barrels per day from the market. Production cuts in Emiratos, protests in Libya, and technical problems in Sudan have also contributed to the decline in supply. According to the International Energy Agency, such difficulties in oil production and supply would cause global inventories to fall by 900,000 barrels a day. Such cuts in supply at Portas del Verano, the Mayuso gasoline season, and better than expected industrial activity in the states of China could push the price of a barrel of Brent to over $100 in the second half of the year, the highest level in the last 2 years.
Jose, on the other hand, and following on from the information about our event, Expo Mina in September of this year, apart from the CONFEMIN forums, 17 forums and congresses will be held. There will be 2 master conferences. Could you give us more details?
That's right, Miguel. We will have 2 master conferences whose function will be to frame the 10 forums and 5 congresses that we will have in CONFEMIN. The first one is about the horizon of mining in the Americas, alluding to the fact that within the framework of decarbonization via energy transition and electromobility, critical minerals are increasingly valuable and indispensable, being at the crossroads of geopolitical, geoeconomic, and geostrategic interests in which Latin America and Peru are a fundamental root. We will try to establish the map, the scenario where these critical minerals are indispensable for the future and will favor the region in particular and Peru singularly for its copper production. The second will touch on the importance of mining in Peru's history. According to The Economist, Latin America's 2 billion hectares have been a vital source of food, fuel, and metals for the planet for the past 5 centuries, having supplied Europe and the United States with gold, silver, cotton, sugar, rubber, and oil, and now have the potential to make the region the raw material superpower of the 21st century. This is what The Economist underlines, since the transition to clean energy will generate decades of demand for the metals required to multiply solar and wind energy sources, the cables to distribute it, and electric vehicles for transportation. In this context, this conference aims to establish the transcendence of mining in Peru as the apex of CONFEMIN's reflection. Each CONFEMIN forum will have a leader and a panel of 4 people knowledgeable in the respective space, and we will be telling you in the coming weeks what each of the forums and the congresses that we will have in September.
Undoubtedly, everything related to Expo Mina 2024 is also of great interest. Thank you very much, Jose, for being linked. We will be in touch next week.
We will. My pleasure. Thank you.
Jose Gonzales from Wall Street in New York, the international editor of our publication, Rumbo Minero, whose last edition, the one of April 2024, can already be purchased by you or accessed through www.rumbominero.com. In this opportunity, there is the entire directory of mining suppliers, 2024, very important information that you cannot miss. Very important information that you cannot miss.
Yes, Cesar. It's time to move on to the mining assets block. AMSAC.
Activos Mineros. AMSAC is a Peruvian public company with a great purpose to bring life back to the planet. Thus, we are dedicated to contributing to the sustainable development of the country through mining environmental remediation. In AMSAC, we recover the areas affected by high and very high-risk mining liabilities that are in a situation of abandonment or in which the state has not identified those responsible. In this line of work, we are currently present in 11 regions of Peru, with a portfolio of 65 remediation projects, which are located in different phases. Promotion of private investment. In AMSAC, we represent the Peruvian state as counterpart of the transfer contracts of important mining projects, and we also supervise the fulfillment of the commitments and obligations that are part of these processes. Today, we are leaders in business management systems. Within the 35 companies of the FONAFE Corporation, having certifications made 9,001 in quality management, made 14,001 in environmental management, 37,001 in anti-bribery management, and 45,001 in anti-bribery management, 45,001 in occupational health and safety management. At AMSAC, sustainability and care for the planet are our DNA, and therefore we are proud to contribute to creating a better world through the recovery of air, water, soil and ecosystems impacted by mining liabilities, and thus contribute to the good of the 18 countries where we operate. and thus contribute to the good of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030. Giving life back to the planet is more than a simple phrase for us. It is the guide of our daily actions, with which we positively impact the lives of thousands of Peruvians and through them in our country.
We had announced it. We are pleased to present in the second interview of our program Dr. Luis Felipe Huertas del Pino, former lawyer and partner of the prestigious Estudio Hernández and Company, and is in charge precisely of all legal aspects in the mining area. Luis Felipe, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. As we had anticipated, our topic is also illegal mining, mining formalization, and investments. My first question, Luis Felipe, is related to a general framework. We have more than 70% of our economy based on the development of informal activities, basically, and this worsened precisely during the period of the COVID pandemic-19. How can we focus on the problem of mining informality and its worsening in relation to everything that has been happening in recent years?
Of course, this situation, which is a reality that we have been living with for many years now, generates the need to understand that it is a reality. Our country is informal, and people think, all of us in general terms, in those terms. But at the same time, we are aware that the authorities, the leadership of the country cannot apply a double standard, and that formalization has to be a reality. So I believe that it is precisely this conflict that has generated that mining formalization has taken practically more than 20 years and that it has not yet been completed. But I believe
more due to the weakness of the state or perhaps to the poorly implemented policies that have been implemented in the last few years?
Then of the three things, I believe that the state has a weakness. That is true. There are reasons for that. It is not informality, but the state has a weakness. The policies have not been effective, which is also criticizable. But this informal gene is something that makes it difficult. But we have to be aware that it has taken too long and that we cannot pretend to have a country on its way to the OECD with a culture of compliance that really gives welfare to its citizens if we do not put an end to it. So this is going to hurt us, and it has to start at some point. I think it has already started because this phenomenon is clearly impacting very precious assets such as the development of the formal mining sector during all this time.
And Felipe? Well, there are two terms here that we see that are the issue of illegal miners and informal miners, in which there are differences and which obviously have made it difficult for the government, a little bit difficult to identify who is who in these groups. Can you explain in more detail what are the differences between an informal miner and an illegal miner, miners and illegal miners?
The illegal one is operating in areas where mining is prohibited, and it is simply not going to be possible to formalize. There is not much analysis to do there. It is not very difficult in terms of identification. And the strategy that the government has opted for since the interdiction of this activity. And it is good because this activity is not carried out by them. It is not a group of individuals. We are talking about organized crime, people who carry it out professionally and who know very well what they are doing. Well, here, yes, the response of the state has to be very strong and very firm because clearly this does not have a formalized future. Informal mining is basically people who carry out mining on a very small scale. Basically, they are subsistence or relatively small businesses. Mining has changed in the last 100 years. Today, it generates precisely the implementation of environmental protection, social, tax, labor, and safety standards. This means that they cannot be carried out in any way. They do not have to be properly financed companies with capital, with knowledge, and this distinguishes them from small-scale artisanal mining, which is done with rudimentary methods and is basically for subsistence. The difficulty is that many organizations, entities disguise activities that are neither small nor artisanal under the guise of small and artisanal mining, and that is what we have to fight against. Because the formalization process implies protection and promotion measures for those who are really small or artisanal. And it is precisely when someone who does not meet these requirements takes advantage of this framework to carry out activities that are neither small nor artisanal.
Of course, but this is a very significant social pool. We are talking about an average of 1 million people living exactly on that border. It is true that the difference between illegal mining and informal mining is somewhat blurred. The attention of the state has to be very, very precise. And also, there is small-scale mining everywhere. Everywhere. Well, what happens is that we have to know how to approach and deal with it. Precisely now that the APEC meeting is coming up here in Peru, one of the points that we have been asked to deal with and that we are going to address at Expo Mina as the Degama Group, as Rumbo Minero, is going to be precisely small-scale mining, as you have rightly pointed out. But how can we move forward, let's say, in all this situation that has arisen in which there are some jostling? For example, the repeal of these transitory measures that the legislative decree of 607 had, which has caused protests, once again favors the illegal miners and allows them to force their formalization until the end of the year. And this has not yet occurred. For some of us who think that this is a small part of the whole response that the state should give, what are the other levers, Felipe, that I had?
Well, it seems to me that the state has to transmit serious messages that are fulfilled. The first formalization deadline was set for 2013. 10 years ago. For 10 years, we have been opening the re-info so that more people can enter and extending the deadlines. It seems to me that an important measure will be precisely that the re-info is not reopened. That the re-info is not reopened, that the deadlines are not extended, and that the message is only one. Mining requires 1, 2, 3, and 4. It is very clearly established in the mineral concession, the surface right, the certifications for controlled inputs, permits to extend those 4 things, or it is really not complicated to obtain them. And well, the environmental certification, without a doubt, that it is not complicated to obtain them, but that it seems to me that it is just extending and expanding successively. When it is always said that this is the last time, I send a message that people understand it as, no, yes, this is going to be reopened. Don't worry about it. Don't register.
Yes, because then there would be more complex things than that. For example, the regional mining directorates, all the protests that are being made by those informals that are in the process of this formalization are against these directorates that are autonomous, and that also with each regional government, they change their components, they change the resource that is used for the formalization, change their components, change the human resources, so they even delay.
One of the things we can criticize is the decision in the 90s or at the beginning of the 2000s to hand over the responsibility of formalization to the regional governments, which we have all been hearing constantly and for many years, that they lack management capacity. And it is precisely the formalization, because of what I said at the beginning, which is something we have ingrained, which is culturally difficult, is something that regional governments have shown they cannot do alone. So here it seems to me that the central government is going to have to provide a lot of assistance, I believe.
In that line, Felipe, it is being raised, Minister Romulo Mucho has raised suddenly the possibility of having an autonomous authority to look at the whole issue of mining formalization and to take this responsibility away from the regional responsibility to the regional directorates. Would you agree that an autonomous authority should be especially dedicated to look at the whole issue of formalization?
It is a good change because you need an authority that is thinking in a consistent way, that has a budget, and that is not permeable to lobbies, pressures, influences of groups that precisely have the objective of delaying this reform.
Thank you for your contributions. Of course, time is always short to increase the reflections, but we would like to have you kindly visit us at a future opportunity. We will certainly continue to use this. The Dr. Luis Felipe Huertas del Pino from the prestigious law firm of Hernández and Company was here with us on Rumbo Minero. We pass on to Gabriela Chicoma with more information on Expomina.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining event of the year 2024, with 16 years of trajectory, with the special participation of the United States as guest mining country. Expomina Peru is the only Peruvian event certified by the United States Department of Commerce. Do not be left out and be part of this great mining event. That is what Expomina Peru is for. For more information, visit our website www.expominaperu.com.
Miguel, coming to the end of the program. I think the two interviews we have had, both with the Vice Minister of Mines, Jerry Luna, and with Dr. Huertas del Pilar, with Dr. Huertas del Pino, are interesting because we converge on the need to continue advancing on the issue of formalization, which is not very clear. And above all, on the line that there is a need to continue advancing on the issue of formalization. And above all, in that line, that must always be differentiated from the fight against illegal mining, which is doing so much damage to the country. Illegal mining, which is doing so much damage to the country.
Yes, Cesar, although there is much to be improved and much to be done in the area of mining formalization, the fight against illegal mining, I would like to highlight something of what the engineer has said regarding what we commented on the social conflicts, and that is the immediate response of the ministry, in this case, to provide a solution to this conflict to solve this conflict in the mining corridor. I emphasize this why? Because before weeks passed, the problem would get worse. And then the government would just get down to work to attend to the communities and the mining company and solve the problems.
The government administers a very weak state, as we have argued with Dr. Huertas del Pino. That is a serious problem that sometimes we do not delve into, Miguel, because we talk about the government, we want the answer. But all the springs, the pillars of the state are very deteriorated. And more than anything else, especially because the confidence of the citizens is also being lost in their own political managers. This is an aspect that must not be overlooked. My name is Cesar Campos. Together with Miguel Zaval, we have been in charge of the management of Rumbo Minero. You do not leave because Peru is coming. You build to talk about construction.
With 16 years of successful trajectory, Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining event of the 2024, will open its doors from September 11th to 13th, which will be chaired by Luis Rivera, Executive Vice President of Goldfields Americas region. For 3 days, Expomina Peru will bring together the main mining suppliers in a venue of 47 square meters with more than 270 stands and the participation of international delegations with the latest technology in machinery, equipment, products, supplies and services, with purchase intentions of more than $700 million, which will be on display for the more than thousands of visitors that are expected to attend. Within the framework of Expomina Peru, the 6th edition of the International Mining Conference will be held with FEMIN, with 10 important international forums, the Latin American Congress on Logistics and Supply for the Mining Sector, the International Copper and Lithium Congress, and the Mantamine and Processmine Technical Congresses. In addition, as part of the news that Expomina Peru brings, the first International Congress on Green Hydrogen and Alternative Energies will be held, where important and renowned professionals will present the opportunities and challenges of the new energy matrix. Reserve your stand and participate in the most important mining fair of the year 2024, Expomina Peru. Do not hesitate any longer. Invest well. Invest with the leaders. We are waiting for you from September 11th to 13th, 2024 at the Yoki Exhibition Center. More information at expominaperu.com.